The sun bled red across Redemption Creek, spilling fire over a town too tired to hope. The wind carried the taste of gunpowder, the smell of whiskey, and the cries of a people balanced on the edge of ruin. And in the middle of it all stood a woman, Evelyn Grace, her eyes haunted, her heart split between two men who would soon shape her destiny. She wasn't a gunslinger, nor a lawmaker, nor a sinner in the saloon halls. But every glance, every whisper in town, seemed to circle back to her. The sheriff loved her with a quiet devotion, the outlaw with a dangerous fire, and she, God help her, loved them both. But the night had other plans. The streets felt charged, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Horses whined in their stalls. Lamps flickered as though afraid of the darkness pressing in. A single shot echoed far off in the hills, and every soul in Redemption Creek froze where they stood. No one knew it yet, but that single sound would unravel everything: friendships, promises, and the fragile threads of Evelyn's heart. In less than a day, she would lose both men who fought for her love, and when the dust settled, she would stand alone, torn between the ashes of yesterday and the stranger fate had yet to send her way. This wasn't just a story of love. It was a story of sorrow, of choices never made, and of a woman whose broken heart would either bury her or save her. Before we dive into the story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow we've got an extra special story waiting for you. One that'll touch your heart and blow your mind. Don't miss it. Sheriff James Carter walked the streets of Redemption Creek like a man carrying the weight of a town on his shoulders. Dust clung to his boots, and the fading sun cast long shadows that seemed to follow him wherever he went. Folks tipped their hats when he passed, but behind their nods lingered fear. Fear of the unrest creeping closer with every day. Yet when his gaze found Evelyn Grace, the fear seemed to fall away. To James, she was more than a woman. She was the only piece of light left in a world that felt like it was crumbling. He loved her, not with fire, but with something steadier, something built to last. His devotion was quiet, almost painful, the kind that would rather protect than possess. That night, he found her standing by the well, her shawl wrapped tight against the evening chill. Her eyes carried questions she would never voice, and James felt his chest tighten. He wanted to tell her that she was his anchor, the reason he rose each morning to face the lawless men and the blood on the dirt. But instead, he offered only a soft smile, the kind that said more than words ever could. Around them, the town trembled. Rumors of Silas Kane's gang grew louder, the mayor whispered of betrayal, and the hills echoed with restless riders. James knew the storm was coming, and he knew he might not survive it. But if it cost his life to keep Evelyn safe, he would pay the price without hesitation. And in that silence, with lanterns flickering and danger crawling closer, he made a vow only the night could hear. If the town falls, I'll fall first, but she will live. Wade Harlow rode into Redemption Creek like a storm no man could tame. The outlaws in the hills feared him. The law despised him. And yet the townsfolk watched him with something between awe and dread. He was danger dressed in a black coat, his revolver hanging loose at his hip, and a crooked smile that promised both ruin and salvation. And then there was Evelyn. To Wade, she wasn't just another woman. She was the fire that matched his own. Where James Carter loved her with patience and silence, Wade burned for her with every breath. He made no secret of it. His words were bold, his touch reckless, and when his eyes met hers, she felt the world tilt beneath her feet. That night, he found her near the livery, moonlight spilling silver over her face. "You can't hide from me, darlin'," he said, voice low, dangerous, alive. Evelyn's breath caught, her heart torn between fear and a longing she dared not name. She should have walked away, but her feet betrayed her, rooted to the dirt as his hand brushed hers. He was chaos, temptation, a man who could burn the whole town down if it meant keeping her close. And she hated herself for wanting him, even as her heart screamed for the safety James offered. Torn between light and fire, Evelyn's soul quivered like a rope stretched too tight. Wade leaned close, his words cutting through the silence. "You're mine, whether you admit it or not. And when the dust settles, it won't be him standing by your side, it'll be me." But behind his fierce promise lurked shadows. Shadows of violence, betrayal, and a fate even Wade couldn't outrun. Redemption Creek had always balanced on the edge of law and lawlessness, but now the ground beneath it was crumbling. Saloons buzzed with nervous whispers. Ranchers tightened their grips on rifles, and women hurried their children indoors before dusk. Trouble had a smell, sharp as iron, and it drifted in the wind from the hills. At the center of the whispers was Silas Kane, a bandit whose name carried more weight than bullets. His men had been spotted near the railroad, torching supply wagons, cutting off trade routes, and the mayor, Samuel Briggs, was no shield against the storm. Some said he lined his pockets with outlaw gold. Others claimed he was too cowardly to fight. Either way, the people were left with nothing but fear. Evelyn felt it pressing in from all sides. Every knock on the door, every shadow stretching long across the street, made her heart leap. She saw it in James's eyes, the way his jaw clenched tighter with each patrol. And she heard it in Wade's reckless laughter, daring danger to come closer. The town itself seemed to breathe heavy, as if waiting for a gunshot to tear the silence apart. And Evelyn, caught between two men and a storm ready to break, felt her soul splinter further. She wanted peace, but peace had no place in Redemption Creek. One night, as lanterns flickered in the saloon and thunder rolled across the plains, an old rancher spat into the dirt and muttered words that made Evelyn's blood run cold. "Before long, this town will burn, and when it does, love won't save anyone." The truth settled over her like a shroud. War was coming, and it would demand everything. By day, Evelyn carried herself with quiet grace, but by night, when the world hushed and shadows claimed her room, her strength crumbled. Alone, she wept into the silence, her heart a battlefield no bullet could match. Two men, so different, yet bound to her soul. James with his steady devotion, Wade with his fiery passion. She loved them both, and in loving them both, she felt herself unravel. The town spoke of Silas Kane, of war pressing closer, of fire that would soon sweep through Redemption Creek. But Evelyn's war raged within. Every glance from James tightened the chains of duty around her heart. Every reckless smile from Wade set her pulse ablaze with a fire she feared and craved. And between them, she drifted, unable to choose, unwilling to break either heart. Her sister Martha found her once at the window, tears streaking her face. "You'll tear yourself apart," Martha whispered. Evelyn said nothing, for there were no words, only silence, heavy and cruel. At times, Evelyn wished fate would decide for her, that the heavens themselves would strike her path clear. But fate remained silent, mocking her with the cruel luxury of choice. Each night, she prayed for peace. Each morning, she awoke with heavier sorrow. And though she did not know it, her indecision was not saving her. It was carving her destiny, one that would demand more than she could ever bear. The storm outside was growing louder, but the storm inside her heart, it was already breaking. The air in Redemption Creek grew heavier with each passing day, like the town itself knew something foul was brewing. Men sharpened knives in silence, women whispered fears in the market, and every creak of the saloon door felt like a warning. Trouble wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. It started with whispers about Mayor Briggs. Some said he had struck a deal with Silas Kane, trading safety for silver. Others claimed he was too weak to stand against the outlaws' growing army. But when a supply wagon bound for the town never arrived, and its riders were found dead in the ravine, the whispers turned into certainty. Someone inside Redemption Creek was feeding Kane information. James doubled his patrols, jaw set like stone. Wade, meanwhile, laughed at the lawman's caution, swearing he could sniff out the traitor faster than any badge. Evelyn watched them both, torn deeper with every passing hour. One fought with honor, the other with fire, but both seemed blind to the danger crawling closer. That night, the truth slashed through the town like a blade. A raid swept in from the hills, gunshots cracked, windows shattered, and the streets ran wild with fear. Silas Kane's men moved with precision, as though they knew every alley, every hiding place. And that meant one thing: someone close had betrayed them. Evelyn huddled in the dark, heart pounding, as chaos swallowed Redemption Creek. Smoke choked the air, horses screamed, and the bell in the church tower rang out like a cry for salvation. Somewhere beyond the gunfire, James shouted orders, Wade's pistol thundered, and Evelyn realized a terrible truth. This war had found her doorstep, and it would not leave without blood. The shadows of betrayal had fallen, and nothing in Redemption Creek would ever be the same. Gunfire split the night like thunder, rattling through the streets of Redemption Creek. Flames clawed at rooftops, shadows of riders cut across the horizon, and the townspeople scrambled like frightened cattle. In the chaos, Sheriff James Carter stood tall, revolver in hand, his badge glinting in the firelight. He wasn't just a lawman tonight. He was the wall between his people and hell itself. He barked orders, his voice steady even as bullets hissed past. "Get the women to the church! Guard the children!" His deputies, scattered and afraid, rallied at the steel in his tone. Yet beneath that calm exterior, James's eyes searched for only one thing: Evelyn. He found her near the edge of the square, trapped between the burning saloon and the wild gunfight. Her face was pale, her body trembling, and James's heart clenched. For a moment, the world seemed to blur. The smoke, the screams, all of it faded. All he saw was her. Without hesitation, he charged forward, cutting through the fray with bullets flying at his back. He reached her, shielded her with his own body, and whispered words only she could hear. "I swore I'd keep you safe. Tonight, I make good on that vow." Then came Silas Kane's men, pouring in from every corner. James fired until his revolver clicked empty, then fought with fists, fury, and the unshakable will of a man who refused to fall. Evelyn screamed his name, tears streaking her dirt-stained cheeks. A shot rang out, sharp, final. James staggered, blood blooming across his chest. Still, he turned to Evelyn, managed one last broken smile. "Live, Evelyn. For me." And with that, the sheriff who had loved her with every quiet breath collapsed into the dust, his badge catching the firelight one last time before the shadows swallowed him. The town roared with chaos, but for Evelyn, silence fell. The man of honor was gone, curled thick through the streets, choking the cries of the wounded. Evelyn's ears still rang with the sound of James's last words, when another voice tore through the night. Wild, furious, alive. Wade Harlow. He came like a storm, black coat whipping behind him, revolvers spitting fire into the night. Where James had stood steady, Wade was chaos unleashed. He cut through Silas Kane's men with a savage fury, his laughter sharp, his curses louder than the gunfire. For every bullet that flew, he shouted Evelyn's name, as though daring the world to tear her from him. Evelyn, shaking, blood on her hands from James's fall, turned to see Wade fighting like a man who had nothing left but love and rage. Their eyes met across the burning street, hers wide with sorrow, his blazing with promise. And in that instant, she knew. He wasn't fighting to save the town. He was fighting only for her. But passion burns too bright, and fire consumes itself. A rifle cracked from the rooftops. Wade staggered, but he refused to fall. Another shot, then another. Still he roared, charging forward, dragging his body through dust and blood, determined to reach her. He collapsed only feet away, his hands stretching out, trembling, desperate. Evelyn rushed to him, dropped to her knees and cradled his head as his breath faltered. His lips curled into a crooked smile, stained with blood. "Told you, darlin', when the dust settled, it'd be me." His hand slipped from hers, his body stilled, and the fire that had burned so recklessly was snuffed out beneath the dark sky. In one night, Evelyn had lost both men who had loved her, one to honor, one to passion, and with them went her heart. The guns went silent. The streets of Redemption Creek lay in ruins, flames hissing as they devoured wood and canvas, bodies sprawled in the dust where moments ago life had burned bright. Evelyn stood in the middle of it all, her dress torn, her hands stained with blood that wasn't her own. The smoke stung her eyes, but it wasn't the smoke that blurred her vision. It was grief. James's badge lay shattered in the dirt, glinting faintly in the firelight. A few steps away, Wade's revolver lay cold, the handle carved with his initials. Both men gone. Both gone in the same night. Honor and passion, duty and fire, snatched away as if fate had mocked her indecision. Her knees buckled, and she fell into the dust, clutching her chest as if she could hold the pieces of her breaking heart together. Around her, the cries of the wounded echoed faintly, but she barely heard them. All she could hear was silence where their voices should have been. James's steady calm, Wade's reckless laughter. Silence that pressed down until it became unbearable. She whispered their names, broken, trembling. But the night gave nothing back. Tears carved paths down her ash-streaked cheeks. In one day she had lost the men who had defined her world, her protectors, her torment, her love. The town would rebuild, the fires would die, the people would move on. But Evelyn, she was adrift, hollow, her spirit fractured. For the first time in her life she understood true loneliness. Not the absence of company, but the absence of love. And in that silence, a dark thought crept in. Maybe she wasn't meant to be loved at all. Maybe she was cursed. Morning came cruel and cold. The fires had burned themselves out, leaving only smoke and charred wood. Redemption Creek felt like a ghost town, the silence broken only by the low groans of the wounded and the caw of circling vultures. Evelyn wandered through the wreckage, her feet dragging, her eyes hollow. Her once bright spirit seemed buried beneath the ashes. She passed by the saloon, its windows shattered, and saw the sheriff's badge glimmer in the dirt where James had fallen. She picked it up with trembling fingers, pressed it to her heart, and felt the sharp sting of memory. Only steps away, Wade's revolver still lay abandoned, cold metal kissed by morning dew. She gathered it too, holding both relics as if they were the last pieces of her soul. Tears blurred her sight. 2 men loved me, and I lost them both. The thought stabbed like a knife. She sank to her knees in the middle of the empty street, clutching badge and gun, whispering their names until her voice cracked. James. Wade. Her heart was raw, her spirit splintered. What was left to live for? The town would recover, neighbors would rebuild, but she felt nothing but emptiness. Every breath was a burden. Her hands trembled, one tightening around Wade's revolver. The thought crept in, sharp and terrifying. Maybe it was better to join them. She raised the weapon slowly, pressing the barrel against her chest, tears streaking her cheeks. Her body shook, torn between unbearable pain and the faintest will to live. And then, she froze. A shadow moved at the far end of the street. A figure, tall and steady, watching her from the smoke. For the first time since the nightmare began, Evelyn lowered the gun. The smoke had barely lifted when the figure appeared, framed by the ruins of Redemption Creek. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a calm that felt impossible amid the chaos, he watched Evelyn with eyes that seemed to know her pain before she even spoke. His boots crunched softly on the dust, a rhythm steady and deliberate, unlike the frantic heartbeats that had ruled her world for so long. Evelyn instinctively backed away, clutching the sheriff's badge and the outlaw's revolver like shields against fate itself. Who are you?" she whispered, voice trembling, raw with grief. The stranger's lips curved into the faintest smile, one that carried neither judgment nor fear. "Someone who's been looking for you," he said, calm and steady, each word measured, like a promise. He didn't demand an answer. He didn't move too close. Yet the weight of his presence pressed against the emptiness in her chest, filling spaces she hadn't known were hollow. Evelyn blinked, suspicion warring with a tiny spark of hope. There was something in him, a quiet strength, a certainty, that made the chaos of the night feel like it could be survived. He didn't ask about James. He didn't curse Wade. He simply offered a hand, steady, unwavering, as though he could carry the weight of the world alongside hers. For the first time since the carnage, Evelyn let her breath deepen. Her fingers loosened on the revolver. The shadow of despair trembled, but did not advance. And in that moment, amid the ruins and ashes, she realized. Perhaps she had not been abandoned. Perhaps, just perhaps, this man was what destiny had been holding for her all along. The sun rose over Redemption Creek, casting gold across the charred streets and battered buildings. The town bore scars, but it was still standing, just as Evelyn had survived the night that had threatened to destroy her soul. And beside her, the stranger remained, steady, unwavering. A presence that felt like home in a world that had been unkind for too long. He extended his hand, and this time Evelyn didn't hesitate. Fingers intertwined, a connection forming that wasn't born of chaos or obligation, but something deeper. Something that had waited patiently for her through heartbreak and loss. He didn't ask her to forget James or Wade, nor did he demand she abandon the pain she carried. He simply offered a path forward, a life rebuilt with trust and gentle love. Together, they walked through the streets, past remnants of fire and smoke, past the echoes of screams that had once filled the night. The weight in Evelyn's chest began to lift, replaced by a warmth she hadn't felt in months. Hope, fragile and bright, wrapped around her heart. "Your name?" she asked softly, a smile breaking through tears. "Ethan Graves," he said, and the sound of it seemed to steady the world around her. And in that moment, the chaos of the past became a memory, a shadow behind the brilliance of the present. Redemption Creek would rebuild. The scars would remain, but so would love. The kind of love that did not burn recklessly, that did not falter under fire. The kind that endured, steady as the sun rising over the plains. Evelyn breathed in the morning air, tears of sorrow and joy mingling. She had lost much, yes, but she had also found forever. And for the first time since the night began, she smiled, truly, fully, knowing some stories were worth the heartbreak, because they ended in love that lasted forever. Chaos, heartbreak, and lost love, until a mysterious stranger changes everything. Watch Evelyn's story of passion, sorrow, and redemption. Subscribe to Wild West Eternal Love for more thrilling tales of romance and destiny on the frontier.